material. There's a gesture towards the object, a movement on the object, a motion with the material. There's a pause, a rotating gaze, years of observing, black holes into a minute, final project, idiosyncratic. If I give it to you or you buy it from me, it doesn't make you a materialist. Materialism is an ugly word. Materials shaped by nimble and inspired hands, hands that know and never know is beauty. There's movement, there's an object, there's material, there's a gesture.
Alright, good morning. Today we're going to work on making a couple of these little French fry dishes, French fry trays, using slabs. So you guys have had a lot of experience by now throwing out slabs and making slab plates. You had your slab stamp, so let's kind of go over the basics of that again just so you know. Take a nice thing of clay. So for these, you don't need a lot, just depending on how big you want the tray to be, but maybe like 2 handfuls worth of clay is probably all you need. Remember, you want to wedge it out on the table, kind of get some of the air bubbles out. So you're just pushing the clay forward and kind of giving it a little roll. Smooth it out a little bit. I'm just going to make like a little kind of like pug of clay here just to start out for the slabs. And then just I'm going to kind of square it off a bit here. The more square you kind of make it off the bat, just the more even and square the slab will be when you get it going. So I'm just going to kind of throw it down, flip it over, throw it down. Just kind of keep doing that until it starts to flatten out a little more. This one's a little thicker. Kind of give it that little flick of the hands. Just kind of let that little top third grab and then pull along the table when you toss it. Remember to rotate. You can also do a little tap on the edges just to keep it a little more square. Kind of rotate it as you throw too, just to get a little more even. My assistant just turned on the light, so you have nice lighting now during this demo. Alright, so we're starting to get a little more of a slab shape here. Tap out the edges here just to make it a little more square. Toss and kind of rotate. Remember, if you want to stretch out one side, let that corner kind of be the first part of contact when you throw it down. So I kind of want this side to be a little more elongated here, so I'm just going to kind of work on that here. Now the slabs, you don't want to be too thick, not too thin either, so about 1/4 of an inch will be good for these little fry trays here. Alright, we're almost there. Alright, it's looking pretty good thickness. You can always get a ruler and measure. So yeah, that's about where I want it. When making these, you know, and most things you do with slabs, you kind of want it to set up a bit. So right now it's pretty flimsy, just got it out of the bag, still pretty wet. I'm going to set this aside. I made one earlier. It's kind of stiffened up a little bit and would be a lot easier to work with. So we have a nice square slab here that I already made. So for these trays, this is basically what we're going to make here. It's just a fry tray made out of slabs. So we're going to cut some slits in the corners, kind of fold them together, bring up the walls, have a nice flat bottom on these. So the first step you might want to do is kind of measure out. So I measured out this slab here. I just kind of wanted it to be a little more rectangular shape, so this length here is a little longer, and this length here is not quite as long. So I did it just kind of eyeballed a 9x7. If you want it more square, then of course you do the same length on either side. So again, on the inside you can kind of measure. Let's see here. Might want my walls to be about, I don't know, 2 inches thick maybe. Let's go with that. Just kind of mark where 2 inches will be on both sides. Two inches there, and then 2 inches here. Let's see. Just gonna use a nail here real quick, just kind of mark. Just lightly. You don't have to, you know, really dig in there, but I'm just gonna do a light. Just kind of mark. Alright, so this inside area of this rectangle is going to be our base. So what we're going to want to do, I'll take this butter knife here, just kind of cut out some slits. Again, they don't have to be perfect. Can be a little lopsided. It can, you know, you're doing this by hand, so nothing's going to be really even and perfect. Just going to kind of cut out a couple of these slits here in each of the corners. And what we're going to do is we're going to fold those corners in eventually, score and slip them, and bring up the walls. So I just finished doing this here. And then you kind of want to bevel the edges. So you basically, if you just left them straight as is, when you bring it up, they won't really connect quite as well. So I kind of like to do a little, shave off a little bit of the top here at an angle, just so that when you join them together, the surfaces can have a much more even point of contact there. As you can see here, there's a little bevel now, so when you put them together, it'll be a nice and flush joint. Do that to all the edges. Doesn't have to be much, just a little bit here, just to kind of get the joint a little bit better. There we go. All right. What's our next step? Scoring and slipping, right? Anytime you're joining pieces of clay together, you want to score and slip. So I'm just going to kind of use a fork here. Just kind of rough up these edges. And you can use a fork, you can use a toothpick, anything you got lying around that just can use for a scratching tool. Alright, just going to put my finger in a little bit of water there too. This clay it's still decently wet. It's not really you know, it hasn't set up too much yet to where you're going to really have to score and slip it, but just rough up the edges, add a little bit of water, it should be fine. If it's a little drier, you might want to, you know, rough it up again and kind of really get some water in there and make it a little more slippy. So now that we've scored and slipped all of our edges, we're going to fold up the, I'll start back here, fold up the corners and compress them together. Alright, and then smooth it out with your finger. If you have a little hole at the bottom, like it didn't really connect quite that well right there, you can always grab a little bit of this extra clay and just kind of fill it in there. Alright, so when you're kind of raising the walls and joining the edges, it's nice to, like when we did with the plates, you know, put your finger in there and kind of define where that bottom edge is going to be on the wall. And it kind of lifts up the structure of the wall as well. So when you go to join it together, it's a little bit easier. I have to do a little pinching on the corners, you know, just to kind of get some pressure in there and really get it to set up. Remember to smooth out your edges as well. So here's basically what it is. I'm going to go around the outside now and just kind of pinch. So I'm going to, kind of what I did here, just kind of pinch it together a little bit, just kind of create a better seam. You can smooth it out with your finger a little bit here. Same with the inside. So I have a little gap. I'm just going to fill it in with a little bit of clay. Then you can see on the outside, I haven't pinched this one yet, but the joint doesn't look quite stable enough and secure enough, so I'm just going to kind of go through it and kind of compress it a little more. and smooth it out later. Alright, I'm going to go through here and kind of just give it a couple touch-ups. And that's basically it. You can play around with these. So if you want, to leave it as is, that's fine. If you want to go through and, add some more curvature to your walls, you can kind of, this might be best to do before you join them, but you can kind of carve it out a little bit. Just kind of create a little more of a boat shape. And there you have it. And this is kind of the finished product here. Alright. Nice pinched, smoothed out edges. Nice flat bottom. So you want to really define that bottom edge right here. Kind of gives structure to the walls and kind of just gives that nice flat base. Alright. Remember, don't always throw away your scraps, save them. You can bring them in, we'll recycle it. And yeah, have fun making some fry trays. Get and then the reward. Once you're all done making your nice fry tray or fry boat here, get to enjoy some lovely treats out of it. It always tastes better out of something you made. Even an onion ring. Have a lovely day.